Claude Skills are reusable AI workflows that you can build once and then use repeatedly. Think of them like a procedure manual that Claude follows exactly, so you get the same output with the same quality every time. And today I'm going to show you why they're so good for construction. I'm going to show you a demo of one that is going to be inside our ContractorOS. I'm going to build one from scratch and then show you how to get the most out of them. By the end of this, you'll be able to build your own for whatever workflow you need, or know where to go for our library of pre-built construction skills. If you watched my last video on Claude for construction, this is the next step. So that was what it can do, and now this is how to make it do exactly what you need. So I've been saying it for a while now that workflow first thinking is the key to getting the most out of AI in construction, and this is no different. So to start building a skill, first we need to look at the workflow. And today, just for this example, I'm going to be using site reporting. So let's start with the workflow of how site reporting works. First, you have the data capture, which is the easy part. It's the thing you're already doing. It's walking the site, taking notes on your phone. Maybe they're voice notes to yourself. Maybe it's WhatsApp updates from your crew. The stuff that happens throughout the day, and those notes are often rough. The next step is formatting, and this is where a lot of the time goes. So it's things like finding the template, reformat your rough notes into the sections, rewrite everything in a professional language, fill in the tables, review for completeness, and so on. So this is a textbook AI use case because you're taking data from one format, the messy field notes, and converting it into another format, the structured professional report. And the information doesn't necessarily change, the format does. And that's exactly where I think AI can be most useful for construction. And here's the key insight. It's that every workflow follows that similar pattern. It's data in one format that needs to be in another, and that makes it a great candidate for a Claude skill. So things like today, like site reporting, change orders, RFIs, and so on. Once you see the pattern, you'll see it everywhere. So before we build, let me quickly explain what a Claude skill actually is. It's a set of instructions that tells Claude exactly how to handle a specific task. But it's more than just a prompt. It has 4 core components. And the first is the procedure. This is the step-by-step workflow. So it does things like classify the input, then the steps it must go through to achieve the desired goal in detail, and what the output should be, and in what format. And this is typically as a markdown file, which is just a text file that Claude simply reads to understand what to do. The second is the support material or reference material. So it's things like, what does good look like? So examples, classification tables, industry standards, a sample report, essentially anything that can add more context to what the procedure it's trying to do. And the third are templates. So for this example, it'd be things like your actual report template, uploaded as a file. So Claude can read it and understand the structure, the sections, the layout, and they can simply duplicate and add to it so that the output matches your template every time. And the fourth is scripts. This is code that Claude can run and do things like generate a formatted Word document, process data, or automate the output steps. Scripts are incredibly powerful for skills because they're a defined set of actions done as code, and so you get the same result every time. The thing is, for a skill to be able to use the scripts, it must be used inside of Cowork or Claude Code. So a skill is by nature somewhat generic. So the good thing is it works over and over again from one project to the next. So site reporting is site reporting essentially, whether it's in a hospital build or a residential subdivision. What makes it powerful is using a skill inside of what's called a Claude project. So you create a project for each of your jobs. For example, in this one, I'm going to be doing a project called Riverside Developments. And then that becomes the area where you upload all your context related to that project. So things like the contract, the project specification, drawings, and other useful documentation related to the project. Now when Claude writes your report, it knows the skills, so the procedure, the reference, the templates on how to do that, and how to format the reports, the project, etc. It also knows from the project things like your team names, your site areas, what you're actually building, and so on. It has that context that it can go and find outside of that to make the report make even more sense. So first, I'm going to show you a demo of a site reporting skill I've created for the ContractorOS, which is in the final stages of testing. And then I'm going to go through exactly how you can build your own skill. So you can go ahead and create it yourself, or you can go and jump in ContractorOS and grab the ones we've already made. Okay, cool. So now we're inside my Claude desktop app, inside the chat window where I've created a project in there called the Riverside Development Project. And you can see it's just a demo one where I've got 3 documents with some project information just for reference. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and create the site report for today. So what I've pasted in here is just a prompt saying, using the site reporting skill, can you create the daily site report based on the following and the attached items? And then all I've got here is a copy and paste from what would be your superintendent's notes on their phone or something along those lines. So that has context of what happens throughout the day. And on top of that, I'm going to upload some additional information about the day, which will be some files. And the file I'm going to add is the sign in and out sheet for the today. And I'm also going to add the tailgate meeting and then a couple of photos from what had happened on site for that day. So obviously, if you use digital sign-in and that, this will work much better. It can still read handwriting, but it's obviously going to be less accurate than what it would be, especially if it's messy. And then now when we send that through to Claude, it's going to go ahead and the first thing we'll do is read the skill on how to create a site report, and that'll tell it exactly what to do step by step. And we can go into that afterwards. It'll take a minute or so to actually create it. So now it's gone through the whole skill process and actually outputted our site diary and the template that I've given it. And you can see here the steps that I ran through in terms of actually reading the skill and then looking at the Word document skill and checking for reference files and checking the checklist that I've given it. So to make sure it produces the same output every time as a checklist to follow. And then install the dependencies and prepare the data. So that's what information is going where. So you can see it's gone through those multiple steps to make sure it comes out consistent output. On top of this skill, I actually have some triggers where it runs through a little bit of a summary for, say, the PM on what might be, say, a potential change order for the day, and things like the ready mix pump truck was delayed by 45 minutes due to their scheduling error. So just giving them more information about the day that might be useful. So as you can see, it's formatted it in a Word document, which means that I can just download it and make any edits that I need to. And information that wasn't given to it is left blank, so you can just fill that in. And as you can see, it's done a good job of actually following the template, adding the information where it needs to go so that I can just simply download it, review, make any changes, add in any missing information as well, and go from there. And it's also been able to handle the photos, and it knew which photos were actually of the site. And what's good about it is it gives it a automatic description, which obviously you can change, but based on the photo, it gives a description, and it's put the 2 in there as the placeholders. And if you had 4, it could put 4 in. So it's actually a really handy way. So that's a good way to get a jump start on your site report. So that's one that I've spent a lot of time editing and modifying and refining to make sure it gives the consistent outputs. It's pretty close. I'm going to take a good look at this one and refine it further, but that's the level of detail we put into the ones that go into ContractorOS. Now I'm going to use the piggyback off the back of this in terms of creating one live for you now using a prompt that comes from essentially the output of this. So trying to replicate this, but inside of the creator skill with Claude section. So let's jump into that so I can show you how you can create your own one. So to create a skill, we jump back into here where it'll open up areas that are recents in that, and we go to customize, and inside customize we go skills, and then you can see here this is the one that I had just updated. So what I'm going to do is turn that one off so we can demonstrate a new one, and then I'm going to click the plus button up here and go create with Claude. And then you can see it pre-prompts that to let's start to create a skill together. So now let's go through and do that. And now all I've got to do is describe the skill that I want. So I'm piggybacking off the work I've already done for the other one to give it a very detailed instructions on what I want the skill to do. So this is just some preamble for it. And then I've given it the workflow of what I'm going to be giving it in terms of the combination of rough notes, voice transcripts, WhatsApp messages, photo descriptions, then how it needs to classify the information, the output, and then the fifth one is those extra bits that I was doing with flagging any potential change orders or safety incidents or anything that the person reviewing it should know. Then I've given the classification rules for what data goes where, as well as some more voice and stars. You see I'm using the PMI pinblock and that sort of things, some more output there. And then I'm giving it some templates and examples and explaining what they are so that it has as much context as possible to create this. So like I was saying, I've just got to add the template and the example. So I've got the site diary template here along with 3 example reports so it knows what good looks like. So we'll open those up. And then all we're going to do is go ahead and send that away just like we did in the chat before. And it's going to run through a number of steps to essentially try and create as the best skill possible to get to the output that we've described there. So we'll come back once it's done that. So just jumping back in here, Claude is very nearly finished, but I wanted to show you this. So sometimes you get this message saying Claude reached its tool use limit for this turn. Now this isn't an error. This is simply that depending on your plan, Claude limits the amount of tool runs it can do per run before asking you to continue. So all you have to do here is hit continue and it will carry on creating the skill and running more tools. Okay, so now it's finished and created the skill. We can actually go back up and see what it has done. So it's gone through step by step based on the skill creation skill on going through the information we've given it and how to get to the best output. And you can see it's done things like create an example content reference file so the skill has the tone and quality bar baked in so it knows what the skill should sound like. And then there's creating the main skill.md, which is that procedure document. It's the markdown file we can see here telling the AI exactly what it needs to do step by step. And then it's actually gone and run a test input that simulates what it would be getting in real life just to double check that it's creating the best output that it can. And it's generated a test report from that. That's where it hit the tool usage limit. I hit continue. And then there's the 2 files it's given me to review to essentially see if we're along the right track here. And it's given me the actual skill itself, which is what we can see here. That has the markdown file, the main file for what to do. It has the assets, which should just be my template I've given it. And then the last one here is the references. So that's that quality bar document it's created, along with also having the example reports in there. And you can see there aren't any scripts in this one because I've done it inside the chat window here. So it can't run scripts there. That's something that co-working code can do. And it's also given me a test output. So this already lets me start trying to iterate on what I like and don't like about it. And let's see what it has created here. So as you can see, not as clean as the output I had from the one that I've spent a lot of time going over. In general, it's got the right structure to it, but the formatting's off and things like that. And I'm going to assume here it didn't include any photos in the test case. Now, what I would do from here is iterate down and just say what I like and what I don't like and get to the bottom of why this is all messed up and get a better bar here. But for this instance, I'm just going to copy the skill to my skills library. Then we can go back to the project that I ran the first time and run it with this new skill here. So to get the skill to your library, there's a couple ways. It's obviously you can download the skill as it'll be a zip file, and then you can upload it in the skill section we were before. Or the easiest way to do it is just to go copy to your skills. And this will replace one that I've already done earlier. So I'm going to upload and replace it. And that will now be live. So if I go back here into customize and we go back into skills, there's the daily site diary there. And you can see it's got everything we just created. So now we're back inside the Riverside development project. And what I'm going to do is give it exactly the same prompt I did earlier in terms of using the site reporting skill to create the daily site report and then the same instructions. I'm also going to add the files from before. So we've got the sign in and out sheet, the tailgate, and also a couple of site photos to see what I can do with it. So add those in, and then I'm going to send it away, and we can come back once it's gone through the skill and see how it's done in terms of the output. And then we can refine it from there to get what it likes. And that's the process, which is important because obviously you don't want to be editing a bunch of it every single time. You want it to know exactly how you would like the output. So let's check back once it's done. So now we can see it's gone through the daily site diary skill to create that from what we put in. And it's gone through the steps that were outlined within it, as well as giving us the summary items like the potential change orders, delays, RFIs, and the safety. So you can see it's followed the template pretty well. It's got a few things like prepared via AI in this section where it probably should be left blank and it's left to be determined, which is true. It doesn't know it, so that's good, but we might want to be able to change that so that it just leaves it blank. And then you take a deep dive to make sure that the right things have gone to the right places. And if not, you'd obviously prompt it to change that. At a glance, it looks like it has, which is good. But you can see here the photos, it hasn't handled those correctly. So this is where the iteration process starts for creating the skill. And you essentially want to go back and describe to it what you want to have it changed. So in this instance, I've gone, this is okay, but there's definitely one big issue that I'm seeing, and that's that you haven't handled the photos correctly. Can you figure out why you haven't handled the photo and then go ahead and implement the necessary changes on the skill to make sure it can handle the photos going forward? So now it's going to go ahead and figure out why it didn't handle them and come up with a plan to do it, which is exactly what it's done. And it's also going to go ahead and recreate the skill or make the changes to the skill that it needs so that next time we run it, it does do that. And that's the iteration. Every time you find something you don't like, you change the skill so that it does it in the way you, like. Now, my recording cut out before, so I have already copied this over, but essentially it's going to give you the updated version. And what you want to do is go copy to your skills, and providing you're happy that this version is better than the last, you can go upload and replace, and that will essentially be your new bar of the skill. Then you go ahead and test it again and make sure it's worked. And then you iterate through until you get exactly what you want out of it. And that's why there's is some upfront work when it comes to creating a skill. So there you have it. And site reporting is just one skill. But the same approach works for things like change orders, contract reviews, RFIs, procurement, any workflow where the process is the same, but the inputs change. And if you watch the workflows first video I created, you know that every construction process follows a similar pattern. Once you can map the workflow, you can build a skill for it. Well, this is exactly what we're building at ContractorOS, a library of construction-specific Claude skills that you can download and customize for your business. But it's more than just a skill library. We run implementation calls where we make sure you are getting these set up correctly for you. We have weekly Q&A sessions where you can bring your specific project and we can help you get it set up and also just answer your general questions on AI. And we also have curated AI updates, so you can stay on top of what's actually useful for construction and not the hype, just the stuff that works. So if you want access to the skills and the community, the link is down in the description. I'd love to see you in there and catch up.